Hello viewers, hello YouTube, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jem, and today we're talking about toxic positivity, which, you know, when a film is so bad it comes all the way back around again to being good, toxic positivity is kind of like that, but in reverse. I put up a poll on Twitter and Instagram, which is @carebackpack if you would like to follow, asking what people wanted me to talk about in this video, and this was the winner, so here I am giving the people what they want. Toxic positivity is something I still see a little bit on social media, so it's quite nice to talk about it and give people some alternatives and how to spot if this is happening to themselves or if they're doing it to themselves even. But first, a couple of announcements and a disclaimer. Announcement the first, I have a new camera which is very exciting, so if I'm looking a little bit clearer, a little bit cleaner, that's why. I'm no longer a lady talking into my iPad. Secondly, I am doing an event. This video is going out slightly earlier because on Thursday the 17th of December at 6 PM UK time, I am going to be doing a talk. I'm going to be talking about mental health at the holidays for like 30 to 45 minutes, and then there'll be some time for questions and chat afterwards. Tickets are free. This is an event that I'm putting on kind of by myself without anyone sponsoring it or hosting it or anything, so please come along if that would be helpful and you're free. Yes, tickets are available on Eventbrite. There's a link in the description and maybe in the corner if I figured out how to do that. So yeah, free tickets, free event, more listening to me. What more can you need? But yes, okay, now for the disclaimer. So, my name is Jem, I run Self-Care Backpack, which is this YouTube channel and a website, a bunch of resources that you can download or buy, as well as talks, workshops, blog posts, all sorts of things, all dedicated to mental health and self-care. All the things that I share and put out are things that I've used or do use myself, things that I found useful, and things that other people have told me that they found useful once I started sharing them. I am not, however, a mental health professional. I am a lady in a flat with a camera. So please don't take my advice over that of someone of a mental health professional. In the description there is a link to a page on my website that has a bunch of professional resources and helplines, so please feel free to check those out if you feel that you need that. I don't have many resources from non-English speaking countries, so if you have any that you know of that you want me to put on the site, please do share them, either in a comment or you can message me and I can give you a shout out or not, whichever you prefer. That's great. Okay, news, announcements, disclaimer, all done. Let's get into the meat of toxic positivity, shall we? So, in short, toxic positivity is the idea that if you're relentlessly positive, and if you never acknowledge bad feelings, you'll never feel them and nothing will go wrong. In practice, it can be responses like this so if you're asking for help or if you're talking about how you're feeling down or stressed or whatever, it's responses like, cheer up, what have you got in your life to be depressed about, look at all the good things you've got in your life. It can even be people telling you that everything happens for a reason when you're in the midst of a massive life change, which, that is a valid belief that everything happens for a reason. But sometimes when you're navigating a massive life change, that's not what you need to hear, especially if it's a life change that you haven't initiated and that's kind of happening to you almost. So that can be unhelpful as well. It's the whole positive vibes only thing that used to be really prolific on social media, especially Instagram. Less so now, but there's still a lot of responses to that, even not on social media, even in day-to-day life. If you're talking to people, there's absolutely some people who have still responded to me with the whole cheer up, what have you got to be anxious about, all that kind of stuff. It feels like a really weird, if you don't acknowledge a feeling, it doesn't exist, which is unfortunately not how it works. But yes, this is what I mean when I say the term toxic positivity. It's that kind of positive vibes only thing. The term toxic positivity has been around for a while. I did a bit of a quick, shallow Google, and I couldn't find anything about the origins of the term or anything. I couldn't find any blog posts or articles or anything that mentioned it further back than 2018, so I think it's still relatively new. But I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me, please, and I will update this with the correction. So I still think it's relatively new. I still think not a huge number of people outside of mental health circles know about it, so I wanted to talk about it and talk about why it's bad and what we can do instead. So, the issue with being told things like, what have you got to feel sad about, what are you depressed, all that kind of thing, is that it can lead to people feeling guilt and shame, and with the stigma that's already about like mental ill health and mental health issues, like that is deeply unhelpful. Like, you do not need guilt and shame on top of maybe the shame that you're already feeling, maybe the guilt that you're already feeling. To have an outside, like almost objective source tell you that can be really damaging, because it kind of can validate the harsher side of your internal monologue. Because toxic positivity is absolutely something we do to ourselves, right? Like, I know I have definitely berated myself about feeling anxious when I had no reason to be, when it wasn't logical to feel so. And like, it makes sense, or I didn't deserve it, I've definitely done that to myself. And so to have that side validated by a source that you see as more objective than yourself is really damaging, because you've just rewarded that part of you that's mean to yourself, right? And so that makes it stronger, and that makes you less likely to reach out for help again, because you're just going to get that response again, right? That is the response, apparently, that is correct. So it can be really damaging in that way as well. Not least of all, there tends to be a pattern where the harder you push a problem or a feeling away, the harder it comes back on the rebound. Like, papering over issues, pushing things away does not fix them. It just kind of puts them off until a future you will have to deal with them, and it'll be a bigger, badder beast when future you encounters it again, right? So it's really unhelpful in that way. It can also feel really dismissive as well, I think. If you know what toxic positivity is, and you know that this reaction isn't a good reaction, it certainly can feel dismissive. Like, people don't actually want to engage with you and your feelings or your issues at all. They just want you to magically be happy, and then it's not their problem anymore, is what it feels like. The other side of that is that I think a lot of people that respond with this kind of toxic positivity genuinely think they're being helpful. They think that they're pointing out good things in your life to make you happy. Maybe they think that you're dwelling on feelings and that's not helpful or useful, and instead you should be looking at other things. Or it's just the way they've been responded to, so that's how they've learned to respond to it, and so that's how they're responding to you. It can be hard to respond to toxic positivity, because a lot of the time they just genuinely think they're trying to cheer you up or make you happy or whatever, and so they don't realise how dismissive and damaging they're being. And there's a lot there, there can be like offence, or then you have to do a lot of emotional labour on their side, all that kind of stuff. So it's really tough to deal with when you're on the receiving end of it. I haven't figured out how quite to do that doesn't involve teaching them a lot of things. I generally tend to just go, okay, well, thanks for that, and then walk away and just never speak to that person about my feelings again. If I'm feeling particularly up to it, I may either at that point or in the future be like, that's not actually a great thing to do for these reasons. Here are some articles. Can we discuss how you respond to that and how you could respond better? But it takes a very a very well-meaning person to respond well to that kind of criticism. A lot of the time people don't want to be corrected, especially on emotions, because they feel like their emotions are correct, and it's very hard to tell someone the way they're responding is wrong when it comes to feelings. Does that make sense? I don't know if it does. I'm going to move on. So yes, it can be really hard to respond to that. and I don't really know how best to do it. I haven't figured out the best way to do it. What I can do is give examples of how to respond to someone talking about mental health issues instead, and hopefully by making this video and talking about the right ways to respond to things, the message gets more and more prevalent, and then more and more people learn and do that. So yes, let's go into that. So I'm generally a positive person. How I am on camera is generally how I am in real life, especially now when I'm a bit more comfortable with it. Although I try and tone down the enthusiasm on camera. So yeah, I'm a generally positive person. I have a positive mental attitude, especially to things that I experience myself. I try to get good out of anything. When I talk about Self-Care Backpack, one of the things that I say is that I spent a lot of time in my 20s trying to figure out my mental health while I was trying to get treatment, which I'm going to talk about my mental health journey in a future video because I think that's important. And all this stuff is stuff that I learned, and sharing this and talking to people and reaching people is something good that comes out of those years of struggle that I had. So that's kind of how I go. It can be a bit mawkish and twee, but that's kind of how I naturally, react to things. But I have a positive mental attitude about things that respond to me, things that have happened to me. I don't automatically respond to other people with that. Yeah, having a positive mental attitude means being positive about things that you're encountering or that are happening to you. You can't project that onto other people, that's kind of not how that works, but you can still have that positive attitude and approach things with optimism whilst validating other people's feelings and engaging with them on that level. Because having a positive mental attitude doesn't mean not feeling your bad feelings, right? It means feeling them, acknowledging them, validating them, but then looking for a bright side to those things. At least that's how I now have a positive mental attitude. I will absolutely validate and even maybe dwell a little bit if I'm being grumpy or if I'm feeling particularly slighted, and then, work through it in a way that's more productive and more optimistic and positive afterwards. And both sides of those things are important. If someone is maybe constantly venting at you, or you're not in a position where you can handle someone else like throwing their feelings at you and sharing that load for a bit, you make the boundary around yourself, not around their feelings or not around them, So for example, you can say things like, listen, I'm not in a place I can listen to this today. Is there someone else we can get in to help? Do we need to start thinking about professional help if it's something that's been going on for a while? That kind of thing. A lighter, easier one could literally be, I've only got 15 minutes. I'm happy to listen to you. I'm happy to listen to you for that, but then I need to go, or I need to go do something else, or I'm gonna need to do some unwinding as well. So you can absolutely balance those things out. Boundaries are super hard. I'll do a video in the new year about setting boundaries. I'm by no means an expert, but I've set some boundaries and I have some tools I've used in kind of learning what boundaries I need to set and then how to set them. So that will be coming up in 2021. Part of unlearning toxic positivity responses, because that's again how I've been responded to in the past, and that's kind of before I figured this kind of stuff out, was how I thought, that was just how I thought it happened. But part of unlearning that was learning how to validate and accept my own feelings and doing that work. So the work that I talked about in my last video around self-care and listening and validating and acknowledging and accepting my feelings. And then figuring out how to support myself in that way and how to soothe myself. And in learning the various ways that I have engaged with my mental health and my feelings in that kind of way has kind of opened the door for all the things I can do for other people. So I'm going to go through step by step how I would respond to other people and how I try to respond to myself when I'm feeling in a way that's not positive. I hesitate every time I say not positive or bad or unhelpful because I don't know how to really talk about those feelings. because they're not always bad and they're not always unhelpful. They can absolutely be a signpost of something not being right in a situation that you're in, and absolutely a valid response to a situation, but they're not positive feelings in an objective way, if that makes sense. And I haven't figured out the right wording for that yet that I'm comfortable with. So that's why I hesitate every time I say negative or bad or unhealthy or whatever. I've spoken before about how important validating feelings can be. That's always a good first stop. If you're feeling bad, negative, whatever, or if someone comes to you struggling, validation absolutely is a good first place to go. It is rare that a person comes to you with a situation, talks about their feelings, and they shouldn't be feeling bad. Like, it's rare that you can go, why are you feeling bad about this? Most of the time, there are some exceptions, because there are exceptions to everything, especially when it comes to mental health and emotions. But for the most part, it is safe to say if someone is feeling bad, there is something happening that is making them feel bad, and that's a kind of an obvious thing. It's very easy to say, that sounds really tough. I'm sorry to hear that. It totally makes sense that you're feeling this way. And that's a nice go-to thing. And as I realise as I'm saying this, it sounds really rote, but a lot of this stuff would happen naturally anyway. I just find it useful to put into words what I'm saying and what I'm thinking when I go through these conversations, because I think that helps people formulate their own responses to these, because I get asked far more often how you respond to someone who's in trouble than I do about someone asking about dealing with their own mental health. It's always, how do I help? How do I respond to other people talking? Which is why I have this in what sounds like quite a cold way, but I promise in the moment it's absolutely said with feeling. So yes, yeah, that sounds tough. I'm really sorry to hear that. Totally makes sense you're feeling that way. Whatever fits the conversation, some form of validation. And then honestly, after that, the best thing to do is ask someone what they need. Because they might know. And it might be that they need to vent, right? And they need someone to listen. And the thing about that is that you don't always have to respond with anything meaningful or with anything substantial when someone's venting. It can literally just be getting things out. I know I have times where I just need to say to someone, I'm super anxious today, and then go away. I just need I need to say to someone that I'm feeling anxious, and then I'm going to go and I'll be fine, but I just need to get it out of my brain. Also, talking about your feelings can lead you to figure out things about them and figure out a cause, maybe. There's a term in tech called rubber ducking, and so rubber ducking is, I don't know if it's known outside of tech. I work in tech in my day job, but the idea is that if you have a problem with something, if you're struggling with a piece of code or a piece of tech, one of the things you can do to try and figure out where you've gone wrong is talking through the steps that you've done and the problems you're facing. And that could be done to a person, or it can be done to an inanimate object. In this case, in the example, a rubber duck on someone's desk. The idea is that I'm slowing down your thoughts, putting them in a logical order, and putting them in words, so making them coherent in that way rather than thoughts that tend to be quite formless. You might find you've missed a step, or you might find that you've said something wrong. The same thing works with feelings, right? You've got to make them coherent, you've got to put the things that have happened as you see them in some form of order. So there is nothing wrong with venting, because sometimes that can be massively helpful, right? And if nothing else, you're sharing a load, even temporarily, and that can be massively helpful. That can be all someone needs, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think venting is sometimes seen as like dwelling or not doing anything, and therefore is useless, and I am strongly against that. There can be a point where if that's all you're doing, then absolutely that can be unhelpful. It's a cycle, and you might need to break that cycle. But on the face of it, venting isn't always unhelpful, and it isn't always a useless activity. It can be super helpful. So if someone needs to vent, and if it's the first time or the second time or whatever, let them vent, see what happens. It's only if it becomes a pattern that maybe you need to draw some boundaries, as I said back a few minutes ago. It could be that they absolutely need to see some positives, whether some help seems a positive to their situation or just some positivity in the world. I know sometimes a lot of people that I follow as well on like Twitter or Instagram will ask for people to share things that are good, just because they want to see some positive on their social media, and they want to see some good things happen, or good things that have happened, and that's great. If you have a positive mental attitude, that can absolutely be something you can lean on. You can be like, I can do this, my calling. So that could be an option. They could need help with something a bit more, I can't think of the word, something more actively helpful. I have completely gone blank, but like, say they might need help getting some food. They may need someone to sit with them while they make a phone call, because making phone calls can be terrifying. You know, something a bit more constructive and an active help. And that could be where offering help comes in. So if someone's having problems and they're not quite sure what they need, if you say, what can I do to help? They're like, I don't know, they're just completely gone. You can start offering things like, do you want to talk about it? Do you want me to be a distraction? Do you need me to help you with appointments, food, meds, anything like that? You know, offer those kind of concrete is the word I was after, concrete things that you can help with can be helpful as well. So yeah, the steps are essentially validate, acknowledge, ask what they want. If they don't know what they want, offer some things that you are willing and able to do, and if they take you up on it, do them. It's as simple and difficult as that. There's a blog post that I'm going to pop down in the description. It's actually, so Captain Awkward, the website is captainawkward.com. She is an advice columnist, and there is a letter from a while back called "The Sandwich Means I Love You." And so the idea, the letter is that was written to Captain Awkward, is someone who's struggling with mental health issues, and her roommates and friends are doing things like offering to help with meds and making her food because they know she's not eating regularly if left to her own devices. And she's like, I'm scared that I'm leaning on them too much. And Captain Awkward replies essentially saying they're doing this because they know they can't resolve your mental health issues, but these are some concrete things they can do. And the sandwich means I love you, essentially. They're making you a sandwich because they love you and want to help. And by accepting the sandwich, you're accepting their love. And that's why it's so difficult. But they're doing it from good intentions and because they love you. And I think that's hard to accept. But it's a lot easier to offer, right? So offer things that you're willing and able to do and see if people accept, and then do that. Yes. And that's the thing, right? Toxic positivity is a very easy response. You just say it and then you go. Whereas actually being helpful can be a little bit more involved. But that's just the way it goes. And the same thing kind of applies when you're talking to yourself, because toxic positivity is something that you absolutely can and probably have done to yourself. It's something I've done to myself. Sometimes I get in the habit of doing it. I still do it. I still catch myself doing it, and I'm like, what is going on with me? So it's doing those same steps, but to yourself, you know, sitting and acknowledging and validating your feelings, as I mentioned in my last video, and then seeing what you can do to help. What do you need? And then asking for it sometimes. On my personal Twitter feed, I ask for pictures of pets. I've asked people what their favourite flavour of cake is. I've asked all sorts of things when I need distractions. I'm like, tell me some good things, please, because I need distractions. I've asked people for more concrete help. I have vented to someone who I've sent a message going, hey, I need to talk. Are you okay if I vent at you for a bit? I don't need anything. I just need these words to not be in my brain. And then people have let me just send messages at them, essentially, knowing that I don't need anything other than something to project my thoughts upon. So it's kind of the same thing, and unlearning toxic positivity to yourself will help you not only not do it to others, but not do it to yourself, which is obvious, but you know what I mean. It's a process, and it can be difficult, but it's worth doing, because you're a lot nicer to yourself when you're not being positive in that way to yourself. But yeah, that's it really. To recap, positivity means optimism, not feeling bad things. Validate your feelings and validate the feelings of others, and then offer and figure out what help you need and ask for help as well, because you are just as deserving as help as you are as everyone else is. Yes. I hope that made sense. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed this video. I'm getting a bit more comfortable on camera now, so hopefully all the other videos will be like this as well and a bit more into it. But yes, I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to have you like and subscribe and maybe share it with your friends. Do not forget, I have an event coming up. If you can make it, I would love to see you there. And if not, I will see you next time. Bye!